Hey guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This is your host Thomas Tyree from On the Hot Podcast. Today, this will be the Combat Series episode number 63 for you guys today. Of course, this episode is going to be coming out on all four of our platforms, our Instagram account, our Facebook account, our YouTube account, and our Apple Podcast account. So let's go ahead and dive into the first segment of the Combat Series this week. I'll be sharing my latest boxing news in the sport of boxing today. So I'll be giving you guys the biggest headlines that are transpiring and taking place right now in the sport of boxing today. So starting off with the headline number one is possibly seeing Terence Crawford versus Sebastian Fundora taking place at the super welterweight division. So we seen the news a few days ago break that the WBC has now ordered Sebastian Fundora to defend his WBO world title against Terence Crawford by the end of 2024. Both fighters have 30 days, about 4.5 weeks, to reach an agreement for possibly a 3-title belt fight. That could be a huge unification fight taking place at the super welterweight division. So my thoughts on that. I would love to see Terence Crawford versus Sebastian Fundora, if possible, by the end of 2024. I think that's a huge title unification with all 3 out of the 4 important titles at the super welterweight division being on the line. As you guys know, Sebastian Fundora has the WBC and WBO world titles, and Terence Crawford just won that WBA world title against Israil Madrimov a month ago. But I think Crawford and Fundora are the 2 best fighters that 154 has to offer. Why wouldn't we want to see the best of the best at this division fight each other by the end of the year? And I think Terence Crawford, it's interesting here because Terence Crawford can either go this route and make sure he fights Sebastian Fundora to, if he wins, become a unified super welterweight champion, holding the 3 out of the 4 important titles at this division. Or he could still go the route and fight Canelo Alvarez if Canelo is successful against Edgar Berlanga in the next few weeks, because Canelo has said he's open to fighting Terence Crawford. Now, Fundora has an option because he can also fight Crawford to possibly become a unified, holding 3 of the 4 titles at this division, being a unified champion. Or he can vacate his WBO world title and fight Errol Spence instead, take the money route, and have a bigger fight defending his WBA world title or WBC world title against Errol Spence, fighting him possibly in Jerry's World in Dallas, Texas at the Dallas Cowboys Stadium. So this is an interesting turn of events. Legacy, I think what's going to play a factor here is legacy. If Crawford or Fundora wants to become a unified champion holding the WBC, WBA, and WBO world titles, then they'll take this route. They both will find a way to figure this out by the end of the year. Or if they want to go the money route, it's best for Crawford to try to fight Canelo at some point in 2025 at 168, and what could be a fight for the ages between 2 pound-for-pound greats, some of the greatest fighters that the sport of boxing has ever seen. And then that also could set up a money fight for Sebastian Fundora to fight Errol Spence at 154. That could be Sebastian Fundora's biggest payday of his boxing career, fighting a cash cow in Errol Spence in Dallas, Texas. So it comes interesting because where would Errol Spence really go if that fight against Sebastian Fundora does go? He's been banking on fighting Sebastian Fundora since springtime, when Sebastian Fundora defeated Tim Tszyu for the 2 respective titles at 154 earlier this year. And he's been banking on this fight happening at Jerry's World at the Dallas Cowboys Stadium. So if Errol Spence doesn't get that Sebastian Fundora fight and the fight is taken from underneath him and Crawford gets that fight instead, I don't know what Errol Spence does, because he's been banking on this fight. Don't get me wrong, there's so many more fights for Errol Spence to have at 154, but that would really hurt his ego, I think, if he can't get that fight against Sebastian Fundora sometime down the line in the near future in the sport of boxing. Now, my thoughts on the next headline, Devin Haney's return. We are possibly going to see Devin Haney back in the boxing ring by the end of 2024. Here's the catch. Eddie Hearns is attempting to put together an IBF world title fight at the junior welterweight division at 140 pounds between Devin the Dream Haney and new IBF champion Liam Perro. The title fight would take place December 7th in Australia for the IBF world title. So this is a fight that Eddie Hearns and Matchroom Boxing are trying to make happen behind the scenes. My personal opinion, I think that would be a huge comeback fight for Devin Haney to get back in line after he was stripped of his WBC world title at 154, get back in line for a world title opportunity fighting for the IBF title against Liam Paro after his controversial loss against Ryan Garcia earlier this year. Well, it was a controversial loss until Devin Haney got his zero back in controversial fashion. But this is a very dangerous fight for Devin Haney to take on Liam Paro in his return fight to the sport of boxing. Devin Haney was exposed, cheating or no cheating, against Ryan Garcia. He cannot defend a check left hook to save his life. Defense was horrible in that boxing ring. Ryan Garcia was just much quicker, much faster, much stronger than Devin Haney in that boxing ring. PEDs or not, Devin Haney has some things to clean up on in his return to the sport of boxing. And a dangerous fighter like Liam Paro could really hurt Devin Haney's stock if he loses that fight, because let's not forget, Liam Paro this summer defeated Matias, who was the boogeyman of this 140-pound division. When Liam Paro went into Matias' backyard in Puerto Rico, took the IBF World title and dominated him in a 12 championship round fight earlier this year in 2024. Let's not forget that. So Devin Haney is a former undisputed champion, 2-division world champion, and nobody's taking that away from him. He does have some tremendous wins against Regis Prograis and Vasily Lomachenko. Nobody's taking that away from him. But like I say about Devin Haney, after that fight, win, loss, draw, cheat or no cheat, the man was exposed against Ryan Garcia, because when he's in the ring with somebody that's around his age range, bigger than him, stronger than him, you might get the same outcome. And Liam Paro is somebody that you don't want to get back to the ring. Do I believe in tune-ups in the sport of boxing? No. But Devin Haney better be careful for his return to the sport of boxing, especially if he gets in the ring with Liam Paro, a dangerous fighter who just dominated and dismantled Matias, once again, who people claim was the boogeyman of this 140-pound division. So we'll see about that. My next headline is Naoya Inoue. Pound for pound great, in my opinion, top 3 fighter in the sport of boxing today. Naoya Inoue successfully retained his undisputed bantamweight titles today in Japan against TJ Doheny. Now, this fight was a good victory for Naoya Inoue against DJ Doheny today in Japan. He picked up the 7th round knockout victory, and Naoya Inoue looked like he was just about to turn it up a notch. I didn't get to see the fight happen live because Japan, we all know how it goes in the United States over here in North America. But as I digress, when I looked at the highlights of the fight, it looked like Naoya Inoue was starting to heat up, and he was gaining momentum against TJ Doheny. And when he was building momentum, you could see Naoya Inoue was basically he was cutting off the ring, closing the gaps, and was basically doing body damage to DJ Doheny. Several combinations, several body shots landing, and the body shots were landing so bad that DJ Doheny was feeling it in his back, and you could tell he was starting to, I would say, crunch up in that boxing ring, and to the point where his back, he was having back spasms, looked like, in the boxing ring. So the referee went ahead and stopped it. Naoya Inoue successfully got the knockout victory in the 7th round to keep those undisputed bantamweight titles. Now, it seems like Bob Arum and ESPN Top Rank Promotions has a plan for Naoya Inoue to get back in the ring by the end of 2024, maybe around winter time, December, and then possibly have Naoya Inoue fight once again in the States in Las Vegas, Nevada in 2025, early 2025. So I'm looking forward to seeing Naoya Inoue, what's next for him, as I called him the Manny Pacquiao of this division, climbing up weight divisions, fighting comfortably, and still possessing a lot of power as he climbs up division by division in the sport of boxing today. Now, my final headline that I will be covering in this segment is my thoughts on Jaron Ennis and Brian Norman Jr. negotiations falling apart. Now, this could have been a big fight at 147 at the welterweight division. We've seen the likes of Terrence Crawford and Earl Spence move on from this welterweight division. So we're seeing new stars being born after both respective fighters had a vice grip on this division, holding the titles hostage and dominant title reign since 2018. But this fight between Jaron Ennis and Brian Norman Jr., I'm disappointed that this fight will not happen next at the welterweight division. Both fighters are world champions. Jaron Ennis is the IBF champion. Brian Norman Jr. is the WBO champion. I would have liked to see this fight between the two respective fighters, but unfortunately, it seems like the negotiations fell short. Eddie Hearns reached out to Brian Norman's team. I don't know really all the details if Eddie Hearns was lowballing Brian Norman Jr. and his team or not, but it is unfortunate we couldn't get this unified title fight at this welterweight division. Now, it is confirmed that Eddie Hearns is open to having Jaron Ennis defend his IBF title by the end of the year against Karen. I can't say his last name, so I'm just going to avoid that. In a rematch, these two respective fighters fought each other early in 2023 in the co-main event of the Gervonta Davis versus Hector Garcia card. So we've seen this fight before when the two respective fighters fought for the what title did they fight for? Excuse me. They fought for the interim IBF world title, and eventually that's how Jaron Ennis got that title. But as I digress, these two fought each other in 2023, with Jaron Ennis winning this fight by unanimous decision, but it wasn't the strongest performance against Karen, the Ukraine fighter that you would think Jaron Ennis would have, and being featured in the co-main event of the Gervonta Davis versus Hector Garcia card. But we'll see what happens next at this welterweight division. I just would have liked to see Jaron Ennis fight a champion to possibly like Mario Barrios or Brian Norman Jr. to have a unified title fight by the end of the year. But it just seems like it's basically now is the time for Jaron Ennis to move up to 154, because that's where he's going to get the big fights against the guys of Terrence Crawford, Earl Spence, Tim Tszyu, Sebastian Fundora, possibly a Jermell Charlo if he could get back to the mix, you name it. I just don't see Jaron Ennis getting the big fights at the welterweight division right now. Yeah, I think it could be a really, I wouldn't say easy path, but a pretty good path to being undisputed for Jaron Ennis at this welterweight division. But those are my thoughts on the biggest headlines taking place right now in the sport of boxing today.